I'm Tiffany Songvilay. We're reporting from the news desk at the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. I'm so excited today to be talking to Angela Byers. Angela, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just start off. Who are you? How long have you been doing it? What do you love about your job?
Yeah. Well, so I've been at Microsoft for 14 years. This is actually my first conference, so super excited to be here. Currently, my job is leading marketing for Microsoft 365 Copilot, focused on the small and medium businesses. I have some growth initiatives too, but my job is all about helping SMBs use generative AI to run and grow their business better.
What's special about the SMB space? What challenges are they facing that you think are unique to that?
There's a really interesting statistics that SMBs, even though they make up, I think, the engine, like 80% of every economy, when you compare small businesses to large enterprises, they are only half as productive. Why, right? Well, it's because, they can't afford to hire the level of talent, right, the seniority to help them scale and run their business. They're always strapped for resources, right, tools, funding, etc. So an SMB, they got to wear many hats. And so all of those challenges, call it drudgery or just tax, it makes SMBs just, their days are hard.
Yeah.
But what's really exciting about AI is that it really changes the game, It levels the playing field. It can automate a lot of that drudgery that SMBs just don't have time for. But now they can get that time back and focus on what they love doing, running and growing their business.
In SMB, do you see a lot of growth by acquisition, like mergers and acquisitions? Is there something in particular that you feel like Copilot really helps to close that skill gap when you're joining a whole different culture?
Yeah. I think on the skill and talent particularly, we've seen companies that now, for example, they could only hire a junior marketer, right? But that junior marketer can use Copilot to tap into the expertise of best practices on doing search engine optimization or really awesome viral posts. So they can actually perform what a very senior marketer would be able to do. So that's just one example of how it levels the playing field. Generally, we see SMBs using AI to benefit in kind of like two camps, First is that time savings, that meeting recaps, email summaries, helping them draft customer responses and creating first drafts of marketing blogs and content. That saves a ton of time. And then the second camp we usually see is then they can move into using Copilot agents to help them streamline everything from automating the budget reporting process, or even just having an agent automatically responding to customer inquiries, at least as a first line. So that really kind of transforms the way they run their business process. Again, all in the spirit of kind of giving time back and attention back so they can use it to grow their business.
I know that you had a session today, and I want to ask a little bit more how it is, but I do feel like when we're talking about leveling that playing field for people, I really love what Copilot does for neurodivergent folks. Tell me more about how that session went today.
Yeah. Neurodivergence is a passion topic of mine. I am also a people leader that really believes that it's my job to create a place where everybody can deliver the best results. And so something I've learned in the past year is that 1 in 5 to 7 in the population is neurodivergent. So whether they self-disclose or not, I kind of came to a realization is, well, we probably all work with one. And I do have a member on my team that is that, and she's just taught me a lot. So I've just been on a learning journey about how generative AI is such a powerful tool for neurodivergent population. We just released a set of neuroinclusive prompts in the Copilot prompt library. And personally, I think that some of those prompts I would find helpful as a neurotypical individual. For example, one I love is draft me an email to someone I haven't spoken to before.
Yeah.
And, hey, I'm anxious for these reasons, and I really need this email to go well because this person needs to support my new project. Who hasn't been in that position?
Right.
I would love some expert help in drafting that up.
Yeah, I know that that's something that Microsoft, like they have a channel like for how different neurodivergent employees use Copilot. I think it's just so good because just getting rid of that blank sheet of paper, you know.
The blank sheet challenge, that's one while neurodivergent folks typically, maybe experience more, but again, like who haven't stared at a blank screen and wish that there was help in getting going, right? Another popular one, neurodivergent folks, they tend to need more help with like structuring tasks, etc., with all of that information, but we live in the age of AI. I feel like I'm flooded with information all the time, so I love those neuroinclusive prompts that help me break down tasks, suggest a schedule for me for getting all of these things done. It's incredible. I think, while we have always built our technology to be accessible, to be inclusive, I think Copilot in its own is an inclusive product, and that's just so amazing.
Yeah. So at the conference, we had a dedicated SMB track. So how much involvement did you have in putting all that together?
Yeah, well, my team and I did a lot of it, of course, in partnership with other teams. It takes a village. But it's so exciting to have an SMB dedicated track to tell them not only about the vision and futures and roadmap of AI, but also really kind of get into the nitty-gritty to help them. We had a couple adoption sessions and how to build agent. Those were super well attended, and I think gave SMB some really practical tips that they can start using next week.
I love that. What kind of agents were they creating?
Yeah, well, funny you asked that. We also had a chance to gather our first SMB Customer Advisory Council. So about, 10, 20 SMBs and everything from solopreneurs to, mid-sized companies. We've got construction companies, we've got skincare companies, we've got your consulting firm. So it was a really great representation. And actually one of the discussion topics that naturally came up was what kind of agents they were already experimenting. And you'd be surprised that some of them are quite AI forward-leaning. One that we talked a lot about is building an RFP agent, a request for proposal agent, in the template that an SMB uses. And perhaps if you had a library of winning RFPs, you can ask Copilot to learn from that and apply it to the next one you do.
I used to avoid RFPs. I'm telling you, it has cut my time from 3 days down to 1 day to get an RFP out the door.
That's amazing. Do you have an agent for it?
Not yet. I need one.
You should build one and publish it.
I should build one and publish it. It's a great idea. So what else inside of that, the SMB customer, makes them so motivated to become one of these frontier organizations?
Well, tomorrow in the keynote, Jairus Pataro will talk about the broader frontier firm trends. And we've just seen that these AI native companies that really embeds AI into everything that they do, where they think about building the company, the processes around AI, they deliver some really tremendously different results. And again, as we talked about earlier, SMBs, they are strapped for time, resources, tools. They can't afford the senior level talent. So they can, by becoming part of that frontier firm, by really embracing AI and changing the core of how they run their business, they can really take their business to the next level.
A lot of times in SMBs, they really don't have the ability to, lose anybody or, so they need to be able to do future forward thinking things with the same people they have.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips or are you learning anything about how that audience is reskilling their workforce?
Yeah. Great question. I think that we're learning more and more best practices for how to help every employee embrace a new way of working with Copilot. Some of the best practices I've seen is, both a mix of, having the business owner or like the leaders kind of leading in the front and leading by example. And some of the best practice I've seen also involves that bottoms-up skilling and training. And I know like the last thing SMBs have time for is doing that. But everything from like bite-sized content and actually leveraging some of the in-product prompts, like the prompt library, right? Like that's a really simple way to get started and figure out some, useful use cases for an employee. And even just the peer community, some were talking about, I noticed some of my employees really gravitate and take that up. And therefore, I kind of designated them to be the champion. And that works really well, just learning from your peers and having that organic sharing of ideas and best practices.
Yeah, in the SMB space, I find, you don't always have a dedicated organizational change management group. And I love how Microsoft is really bridging that learning gap for folks. Is there anything in particular, like, do you have a favorite course out there? Yeah.
My favorite go-to resources, I think, for an SMB, if you're at the very beginning, I always recommend like the top 10 prompts to try.
Okay.
Because those are no-fail, proven, and studies have shown that it just takes an individual to build a habit when they've saved about 10 minutes a week for like 10 weeks straight. Might be 11 by 11, but that builds a habit. So that is a simple way for any employee in an SMB who haven't used Gen AI before to get started. Then my other favorite resource, I have to give a shout out to my team who produced that content, is the SMB Copilot Success Kit. We have the broader Success Kit for the larger companies, but we curated and edited down to the simplest, the things you really need to know for an SMB. So I highly recommend that Copilot Success Kit for SMB.
I love that. Thank you so much. So one of the other things about the SMB space that I love is this is where we really see a lot of innovation. Do you have any comments about what you're working on with your clients right now and what types of innovations that they're creating?
Well, I happened to be in San Francisco talking with some startups just a week before, and it just amazes me the way they're reinventing how to build a startup. You've probably read in the press that, with AI native startups, which really is a part of frontier firms, they are getting to ARR, annual run rate, milestones a lot, like twice to 5 times faster than their cloud-based counterpart. So AI is really doing something really special. I think one example we've come across is a solopreneur recruiter firm. They can now just use an agent to act on behalf as a team of recruiters, and they were able to scale their business tremendously fast. There's just so much scaling without that linear hiring that you traditionally had to do before that is now possible.
And that was something that I hadn't really thought about before the keynote, and this idea that we're not just going to be managing people. An agent is going to be a member of the team now. But for people for that concept to be so new, do you have anything to say to that company just starting out on this journey when it all just looks like it's so overwhelming? Where do you get started?
I would say, start with the low-hanging fruit of saving time, because chances are where to spend that time that you save for an SMB. So the top 10 prompts to try: recapping a meeting, summarizing emails. There's some no-brainers that we've seen. Users, whether they're in small or large companies, universally find them to be the most popular prompts. So I'd say start there and save time. The other thing I would say, some of those human skills are going to be so valuable as we get to the age of managing, agent colleagues, right? The same great managerial skills applies, being clear on directions and context, giving good guidance, iterating, giving good feedback. Those all apply whether it's a human employee or an agent employee.
So something that you were talking about with that low-hanging fruit and that productivity, that is so hard to measure. What kind of guidance do you give people on what the metrics they're going to use to prove out the value of Copilot?
Yeah. We've got some tools for that. Part of our investment areas is not just in the Copilot performance and the features and capabilities, but the tooling to help customers measure usage and measure business value. So in our Copilot Analytics dashboard, you'll be able to see the usage of your team members at a aggregated, anonymized level, of course, meetings, recaps, activities, as well as sort of time saved. We also have some pre-post surveys, templates that we can provide, so that you can also just track from beginning to the end. And so we got a range of tools to help SMBs and large enterprises track the progress so they can see where AI is working and picking up adoption and where they should go next.
I love it. Is there anything else that you want to tell somebody who came to this conference for the first time? Will you come back?
Oh, absolutely. I just am so overwhelmed by the community, the engagement. While I've been to many other events like Ignite and Inspire when we used to have them, but this just has such a unique community feeling. I love the community lounge space you guys have. I feel like it's a very jam-packed, productive agenda, but there's also just white space and some great area to connect, reconnect with old colleagues, old stakeholders, but also meet some new ones.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Angela. We are reporting from the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. If you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe to the Microsoft Community Learning channel.